Sunrise over an autumn forest, beside a river. This world's looking cool. This would be a great place to set up. Hello everyone, and welcome back once again to Minecraft. Just Minecraft. I mean, it's modded, of course it is, but I'm going to try to keep the modding to a minimum. This isn't like a showcase or anything like that. All I want to do here is do some good old-fashioned creative mode building. This is an idea I've wanted to do for a while now because it's something where there's absolutely no pressure. No pressure to find certain things, I can take suggestions from the community, and it can kind of grow and evolve dynamically however we want. Well, we're off to a great start, aren't we? This is something I've wanted to do for a long time because it's basically what Minecraft is best at. It's just pure building for building's sake. Chill, entirely at our own pace, as simple or as extensive as we want it to be. I can take suggestions from the community, and there's no pressure whatsoever to find certain things or get things to trigger or do things within a certain time limit. It's something that we can just come back to whenever we like. It'll always be here waiting for us just as it was. And over time, we'll get to see it grow and evolve, and we can look back at and appreciate our work. And it's already so pretty looking. But I think the very first thing we're gonna do, I've already cleared out some land here, is build ourselves a house. City planning is hard, but we should have no problem if we just start small, say with a house for ourselves, and kind of work our way out from there. Because I think the thing I really want to establish in this episode is that this is a town. This is a community where a lot of people live. And of course, we'll have room for all kinds of secrets and Easter eggs and lore from there. Now, I was just kind of building a box to start off with, but the shape of these stones is kind of giving me an idea. We can have a nice little sort of bay window thing around the outside. There we go. What are those lights on the water down there? Are those fireflies? That is so cool. I have no idea if this is one of the mods I have installed. I'll show you my mods real quick. Hang on. It's not a whole lot. It's mostly just things to get the shaders working and a couple of things that add blocks. I might add more blocks as time goes on because that's the biggest thing. It's actually sort of disappointing, and I'm surprised there's never been a real creative update. Like, it's never been the focus of a new build, and I just can't understand why. It's the other half of the game as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I've played a lot of this game on this channel, of course, but, you know, what a lot of people don't realize is I primarily played creative on a server I have with my cousin for, like, years. And so it's weird to see that side of the game just receive absolutely no attention. I don't want this to just be a simple blocky house, not when we have all these resources at our disposal, all of these being infinite. See, the thing is, I'm probably going to be doing a lot of experimentation with detailing in this world, because my builds have always been extremely bare when it comes to stuff like this, and I really want to learn how to make things look nice. I've seen so many things that show that it can be done, so I'm going to start looking into emulating some of that. Really, I knew that I had to start working on this now after playing the Z-Luminex mod pack by Untrusted Life. And I was like, okay, there's 1,000,001 examples of how I can improve my builds just in this world generation alone. And I sort of like this because I feel like the stone edges and the fenced barrier sort of gives it like a stay away feeling, even if that's not actually like necessary, like it's not dangerous. We can open those. Those will be the double doors. And these will really just act as like the frame. I don't even know. Chiseled tough bricks. I don't know if, once again, I don't know what's part of this mod or just what's part of this newest version. But we do have a number of additional blocks to work with. I know that much. Reinforced deep slate, resin brick. whole lot of it's mostly just like a vanilla expansion sort of thing that I'm using. We also have these factory blocks for more like industrial things, but those will probably come into play later. Now, I don't actually super like the idea of having the interior walls be just this bare stone. Unfortunately, I made the mistake of not building it to accommodate this. Let's see how it looks with these in the corners here. That could actually be fine. I'd kind of rather keep this open, and that works. See, I've always wanted, like, facades, you know? The ability to put on, like, wallpapers and, like, plaster and stuff like that. Stuff so that, you know, every layer of paint doesn't need to be a meter thick. But there we go. Let's make sure everything faces the right way. I just absolutely love being able to pick any block I want on demand and immediately drop down as much as I want. It makes everything feel so much better. So that can be a nice little sitting room. I've also got some furniture mods installed, so hopefully we'll be able to decorate these things nicely. Of course, we could always try to do this whole thing. This could potentially work. It'll still leave the trim at the top. There we go. And it's even customizable on the fly. Now, the way this furniture mod works is a little bit strange, but we can always take things like this. Oh, we can't place it against the wall that way. So, tell you what, let's carve out just a little bit right there. And go like that. And I'm pretty sure we can even... we can sit in them. How comfy is that? There we go. Throw down some carpet in the meantime, and this is looking pretty comfy. Could probably use some light, and we can keep those there. And that doesn't obstruct it too much, while I'm sure giving this place a nice glow at night. Now, how about the rest of this place? Because we still need to work out what the rest of these rooms will be like. It's actually starting to look like it may be more beneficial to use wood blocks, just easier to make sure that you can actually place things where you want them. And using those anyway has kind of been a holdover from Mystery House of never having enough materials to do anything. That's not going to be a real problem here. No, this is either a good thing or a bad thing. I sort of like the idea of having that little peekaboo hole right there. I also sort of don't. It's all about decisions when it comes to interior design, and this is basically going to be the interior design series when it comes right down to it. There's an idea. Look at this, look at this. We have our little closet under the stairs, right? But you come through, secret passage into... oh, well, you can't use it this way. Is there anything we can do about that? There is. Totally. Totally. That is so cool. So if you want to get out, you would go... yep. And there we are. I need to increase my FOV if I'm going to be doing this. Wait, normal? No, screw that. 9D. So look, you're in here. Your enemies have finally found you. You need to make your escape. So you just come over here, go like that, and like that. And now you're hidden in the closet. Which you can leave like this. Same works vice versa. I've actually set up my OBS now so that it won't hear me playing music, because I've realized I'm strapping in for a long haul. This is going to be time consuming, even if it is a lot of fun. Okay, you need to be moved over. Meanwhile, I can have my double bed right here. Perfect. Fit for a vampire. But a vampire doesn't live here. Just me. And as first house on the block, that makes me the town founder. The guy that is kind of the rich philanthropist who everybody has something they owe to. And that means I can get away with a lot. I might be letting non-existent power go to my head already. Anyway, let's sleep. There we are. Now that's all done. I'm sure we can stand to find some more things for here. For example, a chair. Lots of decorating. It's going to be the decorating that I really struggle with. I need to kind of learn how to do it. There you go. So you can sit side by side with your morning coffee, discussing the weather, the rainstorm pouring outside with a good friend. This is the kind of thing I like. Ooh, lighting. Definitely lighting. Chains. I don't know when these were added, but they're a thing now. So we'll just put one in there, and one there. And that's perfect to dangle some lanterns. And there we go. This house is now home. Right after we fix this. Of course, having my house is all well and good, but none of that makes one lick of difference unless we can connect it to our main street. Because remember, this is supposed to be a town. It's supposed to be vibrant, a world worth living in. So let's figure out where this path is going to go. Whoops. And we can also do something like this, I believe. Put you there. No. Put you there and there. That looks nice. I'm going to have to see if I can get the mod for like statues and gargoyles that I had in Mystery House working here. And look at that. We'll plant some more trees. I just love the idea of having this nice little stroll through the shade and falling leaves on the way out of here. Actually, I do feel it's sort of missing something. There could be a canopy over these windows. There we go. Stuff like that looks nice. At this point, I'm just trying to plan ahead a little bit, make sure we have a lot of road to build on. Look, we can see the glow from our house through our little path through the woods. I love that. Let's go see what it looks like. All lit up at night? That's pretty nice. Maybe we could do something in here. Wait. Maybe, you know what? Maybe we'll do something more with black. There we go, deep slate wall. There we go, that looks a little nicer. Well, I think it's quite clear that what's needed here is something to mark the path, right? How interesting would it be if the signs are actually offset from each other? Think about that. Or we'll go one higher. There we go. That's the mayor's house. Actually, just to add to the charm, let's make it so that this one is one higher. There we are. Now we just need to figure out who else's house goes along this road. Huh. There's a hole in the ground that leads to a staircase. That's too much of a gift to not make a reference out of later, so we'll kind of save that and have the road curve probably around it. Hey, so I just got extremely lucky. I've never had that happen before. The power something, like everything just sort of reset for a moment, but the computer did not turn off, and I don't appear to have lost anything. Which is great. I had an SSD die a couple of years ago from something like this. I mean, I always say when I get more space, I need to have like a UPS or something. It's almost behaving like I do, which is strange. Fallen trees. Once again, are these like a new thing? I can hear the lava bubbling underground, and it has me very concerned. Alright, we've now got a decent length of roadway running through here, giving us the opportunity to build new houses off to the side of it. Sooner or later, we'll have like a main street with like commercial stuff. But for now, all these nice little houses in the woods will do. I was kind of worrying about how I'm gonna make this work, and I'm thinking this would probably actually be a good spot for our first bridge, right? Look at me just playing City Skylines. But don't worry, I already have my idea for a first Easter egg. Oh, you might notice I also have a mod that makes the trees disintegrate a lot faster when you get rid of the logs around them. Makes it a lot easier to do clear cutting. I've still yet to work out how I'm going to make this aesthetically look nicer. I'm not sure whether to go for, like, a covered bridge sort of design or something like that. But I think it'll be good to set the infrastructure up early on so that we can build on either side of the river. This is coming along nicely, and I think the best way to get our covered bridge look is going to be to kind of wrap it in every other kind of bridge idea that I had. So, I don't necessarily like... I might change where the walls are. I don't like how it's so not lined up with the river itself. This looks like it's coming along nicely. Feels like the kind of thing where if you can make it to the other side, you get away from the Headless Horseman, huh? The only question is, which side does he chase you from? Now we can just put some railings on the edge here. I was thinking about having, like, a sidewalk, but I figured, look, cars don't really exist here anyway, so it's pretty much just all foot traffic. We're sort of gonna pretend only one type exists. Let's see if this makes it any better from the perspective of the uneven river crossing. Yeah, I kind of like that a lot more. Like, it's asymmetrical, but it's more, like, stylized. Like, it looks more like I meant to do that. Look at the sun setting over all this. This is exactly what I was hoping for. Now we just have to make it look like it should actually be able to stand. So if we come down here, I was thinking maybe we even do this somewhat, like, realistically. Like, say we take some... and we've already got stone. So we just kind of take a weight and anchor right here and just have everything connect out of that. There you are, and now you're properly anchored, sure thing. And that leaves plenty of room to sail some boats through. Not big boats, but little boats. And it doesn't look completely ridiculous just floating over the water like that. I don't think it's gonna have lights. I mean, I thought about how I would do it. You know, maybe put some in, like, the rafters or whatever, but I figured a dark covered bridge at night. Come on, what could be better? Also, what could be better than sleeping in our own bed? I was thinking about just using the commands to make it daylight, but where's the fun in that? Let's just see what that's like by daylight. Oh, yeah, the sun rays coming through on one side, and they'll be coming through on the other later on. You can use this bridge to tell the time of day. Let's make sure that this little discovery remains mostly hidden. And you know what? Let's also make sure that this little discovery has a path to access it. It's weird to find coal and think, okay, get rid of that so that we can replace it with solid stone. Bit of a tedious task, but yeah, that little natural staircase that we found in that hole in the woods, well, I've made it into a bit less of a natural staircase. Sprucing it up a bit. Nobody knows what this could be. This is what happens when you try to dig in a world with actual real obstacles to deal with. Well, just one more thing for us to build around. Just to paint you a picture, it is pouring rain out, it is gray and overcast outside the window beside my chair, and this is perfect screw around in Minecraft weather. Uh-oh. I've got the count a little mixed up. That's alright, we can just go like that. Alright, this is all coming along swimmingly. Once again, absolutely no idea what any of this could be. There's nothing I could potentially be working on. You know, it's only now occurring to me that carpets on bedrock is a really strange combination. Like, once this is all through, you'd never know that that's the case, and it doesn't even matter. But, like, in what circumstances would that normally happen? Oh. He'll actually glow through the carpet. Not anymore. Feels really, really good to be back above ground, but I'm gonna have to head under right away to show you what I've been working on for the past while. I'm a little unsure of how to actually edit this so far, because, you know, I don't want to reveal too much while I'm doing it, but also you gotta see the process or else what's the video? So down here, you know, I kind of thought like this reminded me of like a natural staircase in the earth. So of course my thoughts only went to one place. Let's just speed this up going down there. It is quite a trip. Of course, however, you will be rewarded once you come all this way, because you make your left turn at the landing and even more stairs. So let's come all the way down this way. And this goes as far as I could take it. I would like it to go a little bit further even, but this is bedrock here. And this should start to look a bit familiar to some of you. Of course, this leaves plenty of room for expansion in the future, but right now, I think the reference stands on its own. Alright, at this point, I think the focus should probably be on filling out the town. We need some houses, we need some residents. So we're going to start to build those along this road on this side of the river. But not too close to the mayor's house, can't screw up the view. That's an old view. That's what I like to do. Brick house on top of a mossy stone foundation. That'll give it the look of being aged. And this is kind of the first house where I want to start to mess with like that sort of weathered look. The more detailed look that a lot of construction has that I've never really done. I feel like learning that stuff will be a good habit to get early on. This is one of the first and most obvious things I've noticed playing some of these adventure maps, is that you can insert stairs into here to give the impression of like chipped or missing bricks, which is really, really cool. There we go. We already have one like that. Let's face you more forward. Stairs seem to be the key to a lot of things, actually. Stairs and fences. So now we're going to start detailing this. These don't all need to be like big fancy houses or anything. Of course, we are going to want to just like fill out the land with stuff. But perfect angle to watch the sunrise, isn't it? God, that'll be annoying around the breakfast table. This is going over a pretty deep pit. And while it wasn't really part of my plan for the house, in the end I'll probably end up having to do something with it. At this stage, I just don't know what. I'm kind of modeling this after my grandma's house a bit. There we are. Let's just put a little hat on that. And we can throw some glass in here. And that's looking pretty good, I think. The default door will probably just be the dark oak door, because that seems to be like the default door. I mean, if I asked you to think of a door, this is probably the door you'd think of, don't you think? Alright, that's done. And it's going to consist of like this front room here, probably like a windowed dining area here, and then bedrooms in the back. So we've got here and here, plus you can come up these stairs and access the attic. Let's actually really look at some of the furnishings we can get here, because I have a feeling, yeah, we can actually get these to look pretty nice. So let's get rid of these guys. Doop, doop, doop. Oh, look at that. Sofas that connect. And that decides where the armrests go. And then with you, I believe I saw some additional bookshelves. That's right there. How do those look when we try to place them? Oh, they're too big. Much too big. But we can have them like over here and over here. Look, bookshelves are largely decorative. Wait, can I do this? Oh, we can have it fold around a corner. That is awesome. All right, we'll get rid of you because you don't really belong there. I'm going to painting. We can actually choose from here. Just put a 1x1 here because that's going to be a TV. Look at that. We can have a table. We can stick some chairs at said table. There we go. And there we go. And there we go. Perfect. Let's also open up a window behind them. Let some light in. There we are. Oh, that's pretty. Now, we're going to need to get some glass, of course. Wait, no, I have an idea. I have an idea. There, I don't know how that looks, honestly, but now we've got a little extension out here. They've got a little more room to push the chairs out. And that should look quite a bit prettier. We just got to... There's always the problem of what to do with the extra space. This is why I want facades. But we can also take things like this. Ooh, do those actually light a space? They do! They do. That's really cool. All right, put one of those in the corner of each room. And we'll say a bed. And we can just use the single beds. Could even just use regular ones if we wanted. This is all cool. I love having this much freedom. Here. Wish I could find a carpet to actually match this material, but this will have to do fine for now. Look, it doesn't have to be a work of art. We can just go in here. Search for some more paintings. Ooh, a wither painting wide? What does that look like? At this point, I am honestly just having fun looking at all the different furniture, but that's what this world is all about. It's all about getting that, like, detail. I want to be able to get in and be nerdy like this. There we are. We can put these in the corners here. I think it's important to make sure that there are lights in the windows to make sure that a place gives off a glow at night. Having all these different light sources is going to be huge, I think, in this build. And I'm getting a pretty good feeling about it. See how that looks from the outside. Just what I'm going for. Old, but inviting. And now we rinse and repeat. We're going to start giving you some neighbors. This one I think won't be quite as big of a project. We can't have everybody being that large. This one I think won't be quite as big of a project, but it'll be a good idea to fill out as much as we can earlier on. I've always found that this is true with pretty much everything, how it's easier to build onto what already exists than it is to start from scratch. That's why all this stuff is really, like, foundational. Of course, a big part of any Minecraft world is the most important thing of all, zoning. I'm just trying to, like, figure out where I'm going to put things so that I know what I'm working with, what I have to do, and making sure that I have enough space to do it. The plan for this one, I think, is going to be sort of a hippie house. It's going to be this small little thing, but it stands out because I'm going to plant all kinds of things in the yard and in the garden and all over the house itself. Actually, we can make it look more like itself by removing these back corners, which will give it a little less space inside, but that'll be alright. Actually, we do have some different types of glass to mess with now, don't we? Let's have a look at some of these, see what we like. I don't much care for that. I do like the idea of having a design on it, though, like dungeon glass. I kind of like the dungeon glass. I don't like how dark it is. I can see the Japanese glass working. Let's try that. There we are. That way it lets the light in while still being sort of obscured. You know, somebody who values privacy. Yeah, I like the way light falls into here. I'm digging the vibe. I'm thinking we do some jungle wood. We could even use some of these additional planks as like crates and stuff. This actually adds a lot more than I thought it did. I'm only using like a couple of block mods. Let's open up the sides a bit. This place wants as much natural light as possible. The owners definitely value that. In fact, we'll even go like this. Who cares? Let's just place this door right here. And look at this. Can't you see this as like the kind of people who just sort of live amongst filth? See, I feel like this is the kind of place where you place the beds just wherever. Can't you see that? Like, can't you see these being the kind of people who just like to be in here in an open space with their little plants and whatnot and just be absolutely chill all the time? It's funny because the design of the place actually reminds me of one of those like rich stores where you go in and if you move like a millimeter in the wrong direction, you're causing like $600,000 worth of property damage. But I've never actually used the plant pots before, so do we just, do we just use flowers and such? Torch flower. I've never seen that before. Okay, we'll sprinkle a few of these around. Ooh, wildflowers. We can plant these throughout the outer area. There would, of course, be a lot growing on the property. Oh no, this won't do. Dead grass will not do. Get in there. Oh, look at that. We can even stack it inside of a single thing. This is precisely what I was hoping for. Plus we'll have leaves falling down. The important thing here is that it's all very much just growing. It's not a cultivated garden. It's just left to run absolutely wild. And that's what's so cool about it. There we go. Let's put it so that there's some vines growing in places. This stuff can grow or not grow however it wants. I don't care. I just want to make sure that there's all kinds of plant life just wrapping itself around this building. So there it goes. There it goes. And that all looks pretty good. Oh, please don't do that. Why isn't the rain putting that out? Pretty chill, huh? Ooh, let's go see what some other houses are like in the rain. Let's also not cheat. Let's put away our... how do I use my inventory? Let's put away our lanterns for now. And just kind of see what it's like. Listen, we can hear the rain rattling on the roof, but we've got our TV, 1 frame per lifetime. Just sit on the couch at will. Oh, wait, what happens if we sit in a corner seat? Do I not look like someone who is entirely content with life? That's right, I do. This is so nice. Oh, but of course we can't forget the contemplation chairs back in the mayor's house. Let's go see what those are like. Very dark out here. Actually, I should probably lower the brightness settings, shouldn't I? Yeah, where's that? 50%? No. Put it all the way down to moody. That'll tell us what's really needed. It still seems pretty much exactly the same. So I don't know what's happening here. Maybe it's a sodium thing? I've never used that before. can take shelter in the covered bridge. Seems some bats have as well. One of the best things about a town is the things you can see from other places within that town. And I think there's a lot of potential here. Look, we can see the front porch light of that house over there. We can actually catch a glimpse of the mayor's window coming in. The mayor, of course, being me. So let's go see what that's like. We got pigs moving in the forest trying to scare me, but that's pretty inviting. Okay, my big mistake is not getting a TV in here. I didn't know what I was working with a couple hours ago. As it stands, it's just kind of a sit and stare at the wall room. Now, my sit and stare out the window room, I like a bit better. In fact, no, what am I doing? Let's get rid of all this. Let's get these... Oh, wow, there's a lot. We can probably get away with this because you're behind all of that. Let's put this in here, right? And then we can get some trap doors from downstairs, because I'm too lazy to search them up. I'll put those here. And now we can move these guys a little bit closer. Can't properly contemplate unless you're close enough. But it's basically just about seeing how this looks, seeing how this feels, and seeing what we want to go where. Of course, this isn't much of a town, unless there's townspeople, right? So, if we go into here, let's go to a villager egg, and make sure that we've got some. First residents of this place will no doubt be overjoyed by their free housing. You here, and you here. Ah, that's excellent. That's what I was hoping for. It looks like they can use these beds. Awesome. I was really worried they wouldn't be able to. But it seems then like they have all the requirements needed for the game to consider this a full-fledged village. There you go. Here's our hippie. How cozy is all this? This is no doubt going to be a very time-consuming series to make. I mean, even this right here has taken hours. But I think it'll be a lot of fun, and it's the kind of thing that doesn't really feel like work while I'm doing it. I just wouldn't expect there to be any kind of consistent schedule for this. Like, it's just kind of going to be whenever there is one, there is one. But I just can't wait to see how this is going to grow. Here's our neighbor stepping outside in the morning. I hope you'll have things to do. Maybe next time we'll focus on some recreation, stuff to do in town, you know? And I'm thinking the commercial district should probably be across the bridge here. This thing kind of comes out, the bridge slopes down and to the left, and whatever we do here will probably become our main street. Oh, hey, there was a bat just swirling around my feet. I didn't even plan that. It's at this time that I just wanted to show you a little bit of my 2013 Creepy and Comfy world. Just thought I could give you a little idea for what it is I'm aiming for here. Now, this is on a somewhat different texture pack. Painterly doesn't exist anymore. But you can see here, this is kind of what I was going for, like a relatively dense street. You know, we've got a little tunnel over here. Some of these ideas I'm going to want to recreate. And I want to get the level of detail that I had back then. I mean, I didn't have anywhere near the skill with building, and I need to improve throughout the course of this series as well. But, you know, here, you could get into the graveyard through this hole in the fence. Each of these graves, you can actually, like, dig up and poke through the chests. Like, we go like that. There we are, and there's, like, bones. No, cow. It's not your time yet. I mean, I really, really want to get into this. if we go over this way, and there are, I'll link in the description. I have, I think, twice explored this map, once even in VR in the past. Over here we have what is essentially the lodge from Condemned 2. Up on the hill here is Herschel Green's farm from The Walking Dead. Down there is my creepy public library that I used to go to as a kid. And actually, this is going to be a major focus. I want to build this in this episode. But it's going to be built slightly differently, actually a lot differently. This is just to give you an idea for what's changing. Basically, these are the major points that I want to recreate. This is actually very different with shaders on. I'm thinking the next thing we do should probably be to start on that commercial area. I mean, this episode is probably going to end up being kind of short because I record for like hours and hours and it cuts down to like a few minutes. But I want to make sure we have a base. We show what we're doing here. So I'm going to finish at the end of this bridge and we're going to have it turn inland. And what do we do? Well, the first thing I can think of, honestly, would have to be a library, right? I mean, look, we had a library on my old Creative World, so it only makes sense to do a new one here. And here's how I'm gonna view it. This is gonna be like the central premise that I make all my decisions around. So I just spent a lot of time ramping this road down, and I was annoyed at the prospect of going over this. But this might be a good time for another old server recreation, and just make a tunnel. How about that? Okay, it's starting to look like this terrain change is actually permanent. It's not just a hill that we need to make it over. So unfortunately now we're going to start sloping this thing upward, which is a bit annoying. First stretch of the tunnel is sort of built, but it is looking a little dark in there. Can't have everything be like the covered bridge, so let's make a couple of indents here. Wait, copper bulbs. Are those actually light sources? Hang on. They are! Interesting. Okay. Let's use these instead of redstone lamps and see what happens come day. Or actually, I sort of like this texture better. Hey, it's already pre-oxidized. That's a bargain if you ask me. Oh wait, but what we need is actually the opposite. We need to do some redstone nonsense. Alright, a British child on YouTube refresh my memory on how this works. So basically, if we have the redstone torch here, that'll put it in an on state, and then we go like that. No, we need you here. That doesn't work though. Very strange. So it seems like you need basically two inputs. That's not how the redstone lamp works, right? Yeah, that's the weird thing about this, is that it seems to retain its charge even when it's taken away. Where this works more like how I'd expect. Okay, rather than trying to learn all that, I'm just going to use you guys. So if we go a little bit further in, I actually am really fascinated with redstone. I was never really able to, understand and wrap my head around it, but it is just using like logic circuits and such. Like it's really no different from real life if you understand it that way. And there was a period where I got like super into it. I remember on the server with my cousin, I ended up building this like huge dam that had like these gates that could be opened and closed from a control room. I was super proud of it. Anyways, right here. And then probably going to need one more of these. Because the important thing about this is it needs to be exposed to daylight. So you're going to be there, you there, and you there. All right, we need one more. What if we try it like that? There we go. Now if we go time set 16,000... There we go, night has fallen and the light turns on. That's so cool. The future is wild. Like, does it strike anyone else as odd that most problems can be solved by a British child on YouTube? And it is always, like, disproportionately a British child. Like, somebody should look into that. It may be important. But anyway, if we go time set, say, 1200, both lights go out. That is... that's so fun. Now that that's all done, let's spruce it up a bit. Let's throw some of this stuff just kind of about. Getting this to look natural may be easier said than done. I don't want it to just all be like uniformly covered in moss. Like, you know, it's still clearly maintained, like the lights are on and such. We can also do stuff like throw in some of these. Yep, and that should be no problem. We can put one even in right beneath the light. We can do it in the ceiling too. That's neat. Of course, that will necessitate doing stuff like this. We can take some stairs that have moss, some stairs with no moss. Oh, wow, this is so immersive. I'm even starting to speak Spanish. I'm telling you, the more I play this, the more I realize that stairs are kind of the unsung hero of Minecraft detailing. By which I, of course, mean very sung, but I'm just finding out about it now, so screw you. There we go. And that is one rundown tunnel. Actually, wait, I think that'll be better if we make it like that. There we go. Now that's one rundown tunnel. Which comes out over here. Which I think around here somewhere will probably be where we build our library. We just got to be careful to never accidentally plug these things while we're out here. That would be a disaster. And by disaster, I mean it would be dark in the tunnel at night, which honestly probably invites all kinds of legends. We should totally come up with some story for this. See, look, we're seeing lights all over. This place is starting to look more and more inviting, although in your case... why are those lights suddenly not coming on? They're not working now. Why is that? You shouldn't be blocked. And it shouldn't matter because it's night. Why did that break? Oh, there you are! I guess you just needed a little encouragement. Maybe it had to do with checks due to me being too far away. But anyway, I've gone ahead and... whoop, that's not right. I've gone ahead and made this a little bit more even, just because it was bothering me. There we go. Oops. So I gotta fill this in. This is coming together. Starting to be more and more proud of it, and we're only on part 1. But it's like I said, it's a lot easier to build off of something that exists than to start from scratch, and that's the philosophy I'm kind of applying here. That's why I'm doing stuff like building tunnels and bridges and roads. It's the kind of thing that I would normally procrastinate on, and so I'm just trying to get it all out of the way now so that in the future I can just focus on building. And I think we've done pretty well for ourselves because it's already starting to develop some character, don't you think? Just putting in the parking lot. Again, it's really, really difficult to make nice-looking structures when every layer of paint, or every line of paint, has to be a meter thick. But we can work it out. Best to get the scale done in the beginning rather than later. We run into a conflict, actually, where one of the light sensors is going to be blocked by the library, which, as you can see, is quite a bit bigger in scale than on the other map. However, we can really have the light sensor be anywhere so long as the redstone reaches the other end of the inverter. So I guess we're going to build over it and see where we go from there. See, the funny thing is, the first time I built the library, I built it to my childhood memories. What I'm building it to now is memories from a few years ago when I went in there for like a computer sale. And it's still inaccurate. It's probably a more accurate view of the front room, but I'm still mostly building off of memories here to fill out what I didn't see. Gonna be an interesting combination. I also think it's kind of cool that because I'm using these things, you can kind of see the path that I'm building in. I mean, this is all going to get covered in carpet anyway, that's why it doesn't really matter what I put down, but it's still interesting to see. Idea for Minecraft 2. It's pretty much the same thing, except you have to go through the city for permits for whatever you want to build, and you may have to go to court over it if your ideas are too egregious, or if there's some kind of conflict with somebody else who wants to build, like other NPCs or companies. It'll teach children realism, like an appreciation for all that goes into building, and also give them a healthy degree of cynicism so that their ideas don't get too big. Now we gotta punch some holes, make room for windows, and we'll find some more places for those as time goes on. Now this is starting to look at least a little bit more like how I remember. Okay, this invisible traitor is here to kind of ruin everything. Can we still... Oh my god, why are you doing this? Okay, good. Yes, yes, yes. If you're gonna do this, climb up and out. Oh, don't you be the one that holds this whole thing up. Don't look at me like I'm the jerk here. That's the thing about this series, is that it is Minecraft building, so you end up cutting out a lot of busy work. And I'm already seeing where, like, my zoning issues are causing me to not make this as accurately as I would like. Actually, over here is coming out quite a bit like how I remember. So maybe I'll have to change a couple of things. Something that's kind of strange, the fact that that sensor is covered should mean that this light is on even during the day, but it doesn't. It just seems to know. It doesn't seem to matter if there's actual line of sight to a light source. I'm actually going to knock down this wall entirely and say screw zoning. Look, when you come out of this tunnel, say there was a barrier here, right? Is there still room to walk out? Yes? Okay, it's fine. we're doing it this way. You know what, when things connect, I try to see that as there's potential for future Easter eggs in this. So we'll think about that when the time comes. In fact, the bottom of the library could even be the ceiling of the tunnel exit. But I think it's always better to make your changes early rather than have it be a ton of work later on and just regret the way you built something. By combining stairs with slabs, we can give the appearance of a single short step up. So that's something to keep in mind. I'm looking at this and what I'm realizing is that I've created something that is, in many ways, even less accurate than the original, but more accurate in others in a way that allows me to express more detail through it. So I'd say we came out on top on the end. This place is already looking spooky, all closed down at night. Just imagine once we start building some actual abandoned structures. We need to figure out a lighting strategy, and normally I would have a texture pack for this, but I think the best thing for now would probably be... Oh, there are actually different types of glowstone. Perfect, glowstone panels. Let's put you in there. These are actually kinda high up to take care of the lighting needs of the place. But whatever, it's better than nothing, and during the day, the sunlight should take care of a lot of it. Oh god, that traitor is still hanging out down there. Oh, we need to get our walls up here before we continue. So right about over here is where there would be a little gallery where kids from the local school's art would be shown. We can just put a couple of little... Oh, these need to have books, like, placed in them. Okay, no, we're not using those then. We use these, and these are kind of what's going to dominate this whole area. In fact, we're going to have a bunch of them along this wall, because this is where they would have the section where you could buy books. And we've got to worry about what's going to go in here. because this would be where you would get DVDs. Obviously the most important part of all this, so we can stack these like that. There you go. That's where all the DVDs, VHS tapes, all that stuff would be. I would always make a stop here. You know, get tapes, bring them home, put them in a double-deck VCR, and record one to the other. I was ahead of the curve. Get some light in on this end. We'll see about getting windows over here. In fact, I think along this wall, they would have been a bit higher up. So, question, do we want to do it like this maybe? We'll see how it measures out. A big part of doing lighting is just like measuring spaces between things, I think. Yep, and yep, and that looks about right. There we go. Oh, this is gonna be so cool. Isn't that right there? Just the light peeking from around the corner. Down a row of books stacked taller than your head. You know, a really influential movie for me growing up was The Pagemaster, and I think in some way it's making me recall that. But anyway, we've got to get these shelves in, and to do that, we need to make sure that we get this right. Now, I remember there being like a very narrow, I'm going to use a different bookshelf for this, there was like a very narrow space behind each of the aisles between the windows. That's where you wanted to be. And actually, this might be even cooler if we go like that and make it so that the windows themselves are actually blocked by the aisles. Pretty sure that's how it was, too. Being able to look out there and see the autumn sunset, I am loving this set of visuals here. Oh, but here's an issue. These aisles, these bookshelves only are open on one side. That's incredibly annoying. Is there any way we can fix this? I don't see how. So now this seems to be more or less right. I really wish we could get like an open on both sides version of these bookshelves. I wonder if we search in ladders, if it'll actually allow us to... Nope, we can't put a ladder on the back either. Of course, it wouldn't be the same map if we didn't also include this Easter egg that I did in the other one. So here we have a window in the back that inexplicably still seems to show a dark sky even during the day. And we'll get some light in here to help with that. There we are. So now there should always be at least a little light in here. It doesn't do a lot, but it does do enough, and that's all that's needed. You know, hence the word enough. I really wish we could fix these stupid bookshelves. And I wouldn't give up the 3 dimensions for the block ones. But yeah, this is what I would do. I would come down here, I would find my favorite ghost books, and then I would kind of squirrel away into a corner here to read them. I'm actually thinking it would be a good idea to recreate those windows over here. Reason being, this looks straight out over, you know, the treetops, over the river. So being able to see this thing, an important landmark in the city, from across the way, that'll be a big deal. There we go. Now we've covered... Wait. That one is considered covered, but this one isn't. All right, well, we're going to have to do some redstone repairs later. But look, we'll fix that side as well. Maybe even room for a basement, but now, as you're coming in across the bridge, it kind of looms, and when you go through the tunnel, it looks like you're going into the building. When in reality, that is just the children's section. But what does it look like from over here? Like, say, if you're coming down the way... Yep, that's what I was hoping for. It just peeks out from between the trees. This is so cool. Oh, wow, this all looks to be growing nicely. Where'd our villager go? He left the door open. Actually, where are any of our villagers? Are you guys still gonna be here? Okay, well, somebody's somewhere. Ah, just enjoying a meal. Oh, look at that! They can even climb into the chairs. Oh, they're having a little visit. That's cool. That is so cool! They're actually going door to door. Ah, this is gonna be a real thriving community soon. We do need to prettify the surface of this thing. It is a bit ugly as it stands, I acknowledge. I mean, it is quite blocky in real life, but we can definitely do things to make it look nicer. And in fact, there's plenty of room to expand the library itself, but this was the main thing that I wanted to get to, was this children's section, was because this is where I spent all my time. In fact, this little back nook over here, this corner, was where, you know, groups would come in and read to kids. Which is why it's so creepy that this is back there. Let's work on doing that right now. Just a couple of these guys right here. Carpets once again proving frustrating. And we'll move on from that for now. In the meantime, there's just a little expansion that's needed right here. Unfortunately, having several layers of black stained glass doesn't seem to increase the opacity any, so instead we're just going to have one single, I guess double-sided window where light just doesn't seem to penetrate through the center. So why are we building this like this? Well, think about where it is. This is a walled-off, sealed-off room meant to look like the edge of the building, right behind the children's reading area. In other words, this is and always has been an homage to the Toy Room creepypasta. And there are ways we can continue that. So let's decorate it with some cobwebs. Lots of dust and spiders and offal in here. Otherwise, it wouldn't be much of an abandoned area, would it? There we are. But not too low to the ground because we don't want to get caught up on it. This is meant to be a cozy place as well. So it's pretty dark in here to begin with, but if we put these on the walls, I think just a little bit of dim light is all we need for this. And honestly, we debatably shouldn't have any at all. Now I'm thinking we put a chest right here and a lectern right here, right below the reading light. And I'm going to do this on my own time, but what I did in the previous map was I just filled this with, like, little creepypastas and such. But you've got to handwrite those, and I'm not doing that right now. And the only question left now is how do you get to a place like this? And I'm thinking trapdoor. Definitely trapdoor. We can make this probably a little bit nicer. There we go. Now it's all top lit. Would that look better with some glass in it? I imagine probably. There, now it's a proper case. And we can even make it a little bit of a sitting area. If we go into the bench setting, maybe like that will be the best way to do it. Now that's looking pretty nice. We're working in reverse here because we're kind of starting with the Easter egg and working out how we get here afterwards. But unfortunately I'm all out of time and I did want to at least get this started in this part. At the time I'm recording this, it's basically like a few hours before this goes live. But anyway, if you come down here, there's a secret dark dusty tunnel beneath the library. And right now it goes straight to nowhere, but the plan is eventually, let me just get out this way, eventually over around this area, or maybe for the sake of convenience back here, will be the adult section. And so it's going to come up in a closet there, just like in the original map. This has already been so much fun to work on. I'm just seeing endless potential, and this is precisely what I was hoping for. I was hoping that the more I did, just kind of winging it, the more ideas I would have for how to expand on it, and that has already been the case. There's a lot of work to be done yet, even on the things we've already started, but I am super hyped for this, and I can't wait to hear what you guys think of it. I was originally going to end this thing, like, right after the hippie house, but I figured, like, no, we need something a bit more substantial. We need to show, like, what all this can be, instead of just throwing a few things down and saying, okay, done. And, it's such a pretty map to begin with. And I think a lot of this is going to hinge around just working with that, working with how naturally beautiful this all is. Being able to put secrets just wherever we want. I mean, it feels so cool to be the one making the Easter eggs, because I feel like in game discussions, especially horror games, I spend so much time thinking about, like, imagine if there was this whole wild goose chase. Well, now we have the opportunity. And if you like this video, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more creepy and comfy content. If you have any ideas for other videos you think I should do, the best place to suggest that will be at the Discord, which I will link in the description. If you want to try... well, actually, I could probably link the CurseForge mod pack, right? Anyway, if you want to try that, that link will be in the description if I can get it to work. If you want to support me on Patreon, that link will be in the description. And as always, I will see you in the next one.